Welcome in to another edition of Where the 99 Lead. I'm Andrew Joyce, your host, and Where the 99 Lead, it's a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, where we talk about all things regarding the University of Pikeville, academically, athletically, with the Coleman College of Business, with the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, all things involved in and around campus at the University of Pikeville. And our guest today, Dr. Boyd Boozer, Dean of the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine and Vice President of Health Affairs at the University of Pikeville. Dr. Boozer, welcome in once again.
Always great to be here with you, Andrew.
Always our pleasure. We get caught up on your travels, what's going on with the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine every time you're here. And there are many that know the story of Boyd Boozer. There are others that are tuned in maybe for the first time that don't. Let's talk about your background and how you arrived here in Pikeville.
Well, I'm a farm boy from Iowa. Grew up in Iowa, went to high school with my wife, married my high school sweetheart. We're going to be having our 38th wedding anniversary coming up next month.
Nice.
So that's very exciting. Went to school in Iowa and frankly expected that I would probably spend my career as a family practice doc in a small town in Iowa.
Sure.
But it did take a turn. I developed an interest in teaching, and that's what led me into medical education. I went to live in Maine and worked at the University of New England College of Osteopathic Medicine in a variety of faculty and later administrative positions. We raised our kids there. We were there for 21 years, and
Wow.
I got the call to come to Pikeville in 2007. It was a surprise to me. I never envisioned myself coming to Eastern Kentucky, and what a pleasant experience! What a great experience it's turned out to be. People ask me all the time about life in East Kentucky, and I say Pikeville has been very, very good to me. It's very rewarding to be working at an institution that's making a difference in an area of such great need. Our health needs are so great, and everyone knows the statistics associated with Appalachia and the health challenges that we face. But it's really fulfilling to be helping to be part of the solution to such problems.
Sure. And the history of the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, if we could talk about that for just a moment. For those that are just tuned in, it's not been around that long, but already highly respected. Talk about the history for just a moment.
Sure. The first class started here in late summer of 1997, and there were 60 members in that first class. They graduated in 2001, so we've now had 14 graduating classes.
Right.
That makes us still a pretty young medical school, but really we've in those 14 years we've graduated just over 900 physicians.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is, and the school has grown. It grew from 60 students per class to 75 students per class. When we constructed the Cole building, we have moved up now to 135 students per class, and the class of 2016 will be the first class of 135 to graduate. That's really exciting because we've proven that we have kept the promise we made when the school was founded, and that was to produce primary care physicians for rural and underserved areas of Kentucky and Appalachia. We've proven that we can do that, and with the growth of the class size, we'll be that much more able to continue to fulfill that mission.
Over 900 graduated physicians in the course of history at the University of Pikeville. You touched briefly on the mission of Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine when the school was started. If you could talk about that mission for just a moment for those that have just tuned in and don't realize what it is.
Well, there's been a pretty well documented physician shortage, particularly in primary care, throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But at the time the school was founded, it was most acute here in the eastern part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so the vision for the founding of the school was that we would produce primary care physicians who would serve in rural and underserved areas.
Sure.
So that was it in a nutshell. There are some other bits and pieces to the mission, but that's the core of it.
Sure.
That's what we were founded to do.
And the core group of students coming to Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine were from Central Appalachia as well. Part of that reason being they're from here, they're trained here, they'll stay here.
You have said it exactly, Andrew. That's a big part of the philosophy here. If you want physicians to practice primary care in rural and underserved areas, you start out by taking students from those areas.
Sure.
And you establish training locations in those areas, and they are more likely to stay, and we've proven that to be the case.
Over 900 physicians graduated, meeting the need. Has the need been met in the Central Appalachian region?
No, there's still a significant need in Central Appalachia. The shortages in East Kentucky are much less than they were when we were founded. And it's interesting that a workforce study that was commissioned by the state and just reported within the last 6 months or so, the results reported just within the last 6 months or so, have indicated that the greatest primary care physician shortage in the Commonwealth now is in Western Kentucky.
Wow.
And we are, in fact, reaching out further and trying to help address that as well.
Sure. Dr. Boyd Boozer, Dean of Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, our guest on the show today, also Vice President of Health Affairs at the University of Pikeville. And Dr. Boozer, Kentucky COM has seen many successes. The school's ranked nationally in rural medicine. We can open national magazines and find the University of Pikeville, Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's also listed as one of the most affordable medical schools in the nation. How does that success reflect the mission?
Well, it's integral. It's a result of our focus on the mission, really, Andrew. When we are asked the question, how do you meet the mission, there are many answers to that. We talked about where we get our students from and where we train them. That clearly is an important part. But the fact that we put them all on a level playing field when they come here. I mean, once you're accepted as a student to the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, we do not want our students to have to make financially driven decisions about which of their required texts they can or can't afford, or whether they can have the appropriate technology, an appropriate laptop, an iPad, the right diagnostic equipment. So we provide all of those things at no additional charge beyond their tuition. So putting them on that level playing field and making sure that they have the tools that they need to succeed here is another part of how we meet that mission. Keeping the tuition low, and in fact, according to U.S. News and World Report, we are the fourth most affordable private medical school in the United States, and that's including all medical schools. There's about 140 medical schools in the U.S. that grant the MD degree, and there's about 30, just over 30 that grant the DO degree. So 100 out of 170 total,
right.
we are fourth,
wow.
And that we think is a very important part of meeting the mission. If your mission is to produce primary care physicians for rural and underserved areas, then the fact that you're ranked in rural medicine is another reflection of that focus.
Absolutely. Dr. Boozer, you're also co-chair of the Blue Ribbon Commission for the Advancement of Osteopathic Medical Education. Tell us about your role with that commission and their goal for educating future physicians.
Well, that commission was a joint project of the American Osteopathic Association, which is our profession's major professional society, and the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine, which is made up of, it's a membership organization of all the colleges of osteopathic medicine. And there were 25 members appointed to this commission, and they were drawn from all aspects of the profession, from leadership in medical education to leadership in professional associations and specialty societies, as well as physicians in training and lay persons. And our charge was to really take a hard look at the current medical education model and envision how it might be improved upon, really, to for the future, as we're more than a decade into the 21st century now. The way we did things in the 20th century in medical education, in some ways, is becoming anachronistic. We have a number of areas in medical education where there are redundancies and inefficiencies that have just grown up that way because of the system.
Sure.
And so we met over a period of about 2 years and produced a report that makes some rather dramatic suggestions in terms of the medical education process. Something that, in serving as a co-chair of that I'm very proud to have been involved with.
Sure. And you've been involved with teaching physicians for how long now?
Well, since the early 1980s, actually, so over 30 years.
30 years. What changes have you seen in the way that aspiring physicians are trained since the beginning of your time in medical education to now?
Well, sadly, not enough,
Right.
Andrew. And this was part of the impetus for producing this Blue Ribbon Commission to look at how the osteopathic medical education community might lead change. The medical education model for the past 100 years has been really largely driven by something that was called the Flexner Report, and it's, I'm not going to bore our audience with delving down deeply into that, but it really drove the system. It was 4 years of undergraduate education leading to a bachelor's degree, then 4 years of medical education, 2 years predominantly in the classroom and labs, and 2 years out in clinical sites. Then you receive your degree, and then really you're talking about residency training, which is a minimum of 3 years,
Sure.
but could be up to 7 years, and subspecialty training might go even beyond that. So the pathway to becoming a physician is so long, and it's appropriate to ask the questions. Does it need to be that long?
Right.
Could we do a better job if we broke down some of the silos in between the parts of the continuum of education? Could we eliminate some redundancies in some areas? And this is exactly what the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission encompass.
The length of the education for a physician to reach his field, was that scaring off potential med students that said, I'm just not sure I want to spend 10 years before I arrive where I want to be?
Well, that's a very good question, Andrew. The fact is, there are more and more students applying to medical school. I mean, we have broken our all-time record for number of applicants to the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine for the last 6 consecutive years. And right now, we're running 13% ahead of where we were at this time last year in terms of applications for next year's class. So there's no shortage of interest. Where the length of training does create an issue for us is that for primary care physicians, they are when you look at the pay for physicians and rank them according to which specialties are highest paying to which specialties are lowest paying.
Sure.
Primary care is always towards the lowest end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the cost of medical education continuing to rise, as it always does, and the reimbursement being lower for primary care specialties, the students have such a huge debt load when they graduate from medical school that it becomes a real financial disincentive for them to pursue primary care specialties.
Sure.
So if we can make a more efficient process that allows the trainees to spend less time in that training and generate less debt and get into the workforce a little bit sooner and have the length of their earning life be expanded a little bit, that should help mitigate some of those issues.
Other things that the commission has talked about.
Well, I think one of the biggest topics is the disconnect between the medical school training which leads up to the awarding of the degree versus the residency training after, where you establish your specialty. If you're going to become a surgeon, that's done during the residency. If you're going to become a family practice physician or an emergency physician or an internal medicine specialist, that all occurs after you've received your degree in your residency training.
Sure.
And there's such a hard break and such silos between those two. That's where a lot of inefficiencies are created in the current training model. And so that is something that the Blue Ribbon Commission focused on, how we could make that more efficient. And I think we put out some pretty strong work in that regard.
Very good. Dr. Boyd Boozer, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. You talk about growth in the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine in number of applicants. The class, the students that will be accepted for fall 2015, they're being notified now. How many applications did the school receive for the upcoming year?
Well, for the class that are current first-year students now, we had over 3,500 applicants for 135 seats. That's pretty competitive.
Sure.
For the current class that we're interviewing, and interviews are going on now, and they'll go on until well after the first of the year. In fact, our last interviews probably won't be until sometime in the spring. But we're, as I said, we're 13% ahead of where we were at the same point in the cycle last year. So if that holds up, we're going to be pushing 4,000, getting pretty close to that number by the time this cycle finishes.
Out of 4,000 applicants, how many might receive an interview?
Oh, a couple hundred. Yeah, that's where a lot of the trimming happens. Sure. In the early phases of the process. If you're invited for an interview, you have a pretty decent chance of getting accepted.
Right. But still, it's tough whittling down from 4,000 to those 200, and then finally to the 135. It's a select group.
A lot of work goes into it, and our faculty and our staff do that work. It's a pretty sophisticated process, but we do grant preference to applicants from Kentucky and from other Appalachian areas.
Sure.
And and particularly to applicants from small towns and rural areas.
Absolutely. You've been traveling lately. We talked about your travel before we went on air, and also talking about traveling with the commission and representing, of course, the university and the American Osteopathic Association. Tell us about your recent trips,
Well,
or some of your recent
yeah,
trips. It's a half-hour show.
You know, yeah. Since the 1st of October, I've been to London. I don't mean London, Kentucky.
Right.
We were over in London.
Across the pond.
Across the pond. Yeah, yeah. Two countries separated by a common language, as
Yes.
they sometimes say. Had a very nice meeting of the Osteopathic International Alliance in London, England. It was very nice. I was in New Orleans for a group that I work with that's part of the American Medical Association that has to do with physician payment. I've been a presenter at a graduate medical education summit at Arkansas State University. Been to Chicago a couple of times, and was in Seattle for our big annual scientific conference. So that's just been in the last 6 weeks. So it's I've been moving around pretty good. I'm a moving target, Andrew.
Yes, yes, and that's not always a bad thing. Dr. Boyd Boozer, Dean of the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. And of course, the Cole Building, it's changed the skyline, as Governor Patton says, of Pikeville, but also a lot of growth in the downtown area related to the growth of the university. New construction coming still. But let's talk a little about the Cole Building. It's a new toy. It is still a new toy, and I know it certainly changed the way that our med students were trained in the technologies, in a high-tech atmosphere, in more space, and we know some of the benefits. But talk about the Cole Building, and you just talked about conferences on technology, medical technologies. How does that change the education, and how does the Cole Building help make that possible?
Well, it puts us on a level playing field in terms of the ability to deliver curriculum in a modern, a state-of-the-art manner. You know, it's the old days of just sitting students down in seats and lecturing to them, and that being the sole method of delivery. That's going by the wayside.
Sure.
We have opportunities with the space in the Cole Building to present things in a different manner. We have really good capability to deliver distance-based education as well, and we're going to be taking advantage of that more and more as the years go by. Not strictly for the medical education, but in terms of interprofessional education, where you want to reach a larger group than the number that can fit into the classroom. We're going to be doing collaborations with the students from our new Kentucky College of Optometry. Once they come, we expect we'll have them, assuming everything goes as planned. We would expect to see them in 2016 with our nursing program, our nursing students as well. So that's one of the big differences technologically in the building is the ability to disseminate more widely through technology. Probably the other biggest advantage of the new building is in our clinical skills training and evaluation center. It's a very much more technologically advanced way of helping to teach students to interact with patients.
Sure.
And we've talked in the past about our standardized patient program. We have specialized rooms that standardized patients who are essentially actors that are trained to portray specific clinical medical conditions in a very reproducible manner.
Right.
And our students can go in and have those encounters in these special rooms that have video and audio. There's 2 pan, tilt, zoom cameras in each of those exam rooms, as well as the microphones, and we can really provide the kind of feedback that's appropriate to help prepare these students to go out and interact with real patients. Also, the simulation rooms where we have the high fidelity robotic simulated patients, mechanical simulated patients. That technology is unbelievable now, and that really is a much superior method of getting training to our students than what we did back 35 years ago when I was going to school.
Sure. And then the clinical settings as well that I know has been open to the community.
Yes, yeah. Our Clinical Skills Training and Evaluation Center doubles as our free clinic. It's held in the same site there. Of course, when we have our real clinic patients there, we don't have the video cameras turned on. So if you're thinking about coming and visiting the free clinic, don't worry about that. Sure. It's all very secure.
But giving the future physicians hands-on experience.
Yes,
and working under supervision of experienced
Absolutely.
doctors.
Yep, that's the whole goal of it. Yep.
It's a great part of Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, and we know that CICOM students are heavily involved in community outreach. Let's talk about that in the couple of minutes that we have remaining. Let's talk about their involvement and service and how that adds to their educational experience as aspiring physicians.
Well, every year, in conjunction with Go Ministries, our medical students have conducted a mission to the Dominican Republic. In fact, President Hurley and our First Lady, Tina Hurley, joined them on that mission trip this past year. That is something that imparts something very special and important to those students. It really deepens their sense of service to go into those sorts of areas and serve that kind of need. But Andrew, they very much are in tune to the needs of our local region as well, and they are involved with Habitat for Humanity. They've helped out at Judy's Place for Kids. They have done health screenings. They've participated in the remote area medical, the RAM expeditions. So they know that there's plenty of ways that they can help right here in our backyard.
Sure. I'm in a lot of events throughout the area, different types of events, and so many times I will encounter the DOs on the go.
That's right.
They're out there and they're in the community, and I know they're heavily involved, and many understand the community and what it means as they prepare to serve the community as physicians. Dr. Boozer, as always, we could use a little more time, but we'll welcome you back real soon. And we know you've been on the road. Enjoy your time in town before you're back on the road. But thanks for being here again today.
I love being here in Pikeville, and it's always a pleasure to come and talk with you, Andrew.
Indeed. Dr. Boyd Boozer, Dean of the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine and Vice President of Health Affairs at the University of Pikeville, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead, a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia. Thanks for tuning in.